What if I told you the Vikings didn't disappear because they got weaker?
But because the world stopped needing them the way it used to?
Think about that for a second. The most feared warriors in Europe. Gone.
So what really ended the Viking Age? Let's talk about it.
For a few centuries, just hearing the word Viking was enough to make entire towns panic.
Church bells rang. Doors slammed shut. People ran. And honestly, they had a reason to.
The Vikings weren't just fighters. They were fast, smart, ruthless when needed.
They showed up out of nowhere, hit hard, and vanished just as quickly.
No standing armies. No warning. Just sails on the horizon. And then chaos.
But here's the thing most people forget. The Vikings didn't see themselves as villains.
They were farmers, traders, explorers, people trying to survive in a harsh world. Raiding wasn't their identity.
It was their solution. Scandinavia didn't exactly offer easy living. Thin soil, long winters, limited resources. So when survival at home got tough, they looked outward.
And for a long time, it worked.
They reached England, France, Ireland, even North America.
They carved paths across rivers and seas, like the world was wide open. It felt unstoppable. Which makes the big question even more haunting. How does something that powerful fade away? Because the Viking Age didn't end with a single battle. It ended quietly, slowly, and almost unnoticed. Here's where things start to shift. While the Vikings were mastering hit-and-run warfare, the rest of Europe was learning. Kings got smarter, kingdoms got stronger, towns built walls, armies trained together, defenses improved. Suddenly, raiding wasn't as easy as it used to be. Imagine breaking into houses every night, and one day, everyone has locks, alarms, and neighbors watching.
That's what happened to the Vikings. The surprise advantage? Gone.
And then there's something even bigger most people don't talk about enough. Trade.
See, as Europe stabilized, trading became more profitable than raiding.
Why risk your life stealing silver when you can make more selling furs, amber, weapons, and skills?
The Vikings were adaptable. That's important. They didn't stubbornly cling to the old ways. They adjusted.
They settled down, built towns, married locals, became part of the system.
And here's the twist, that adaptability, the thing that made them powerful, is also what slowly ended the Viking Age. Because when warriors settle, the world remembers them differently. Now let's talk about something deeper, something cultural. Religion.
For generations, Vikings lived by old gods. Odin, Thor, Frey. These weren't gentle beliefs. They were made for hard lives. But Christianity started spreading north. At first, slow, Then, everywhere.
Kings converted, then demanded their people convert. Old rituals were banned, pagan temples destroyed, churches built in their place.
And this wasn't just a belief change. It changed values. Warrior honor shifted.
Raiding fellow Christians became less acceptable. Revenge cycles softened into laws and courts.
Think about it like this. If your whole life philosophy says, glory comes from battle, and suddenly it says, glory comes from peace.
That's not just an update. That's a rewrite of who you are.
Many Vikings didn't fight this change. They embraced it, and in doing so, they became something else.
And that's when the Viking Age quietly slipped into history.
Here's a truth we don't like to admit. A warrior culture can't survive forever.
Eventually, people want safety, stability, a future for their kids.
Vikings settled. They farmed. They governed. They married into royal families. Some even became kings themselves. The irony? They won!
They didn't get wiped out. They got absorbed. England didn't defeat the Vikings. It became partly Viking.
Same with France. Same with parts of Eastern Europe.
The Viking Age didn't end because Vikings failed. It ended because their world succeeded.
And once success becomes normal, legends fade.
Think about that in your own life. How many times have you chased something fiercely?
Only to realize once you got it, the fire changed? Not gone, just different.
But there's one final reason the Viking Age couldn't last forever.
Every era has its moment. The Viking Age was born from chaos. It thrived in weak borders and unprotected lands.
But as the world organized, centralized, and connected, there was less room for roaming warriors.
History didn't erase the Vikings. It moved on.
And that's the part that hits hardest. Because deep down, this story isn't just about Vikings.
About how strength changes meaning over time. About how adapting can save you and cost you your identity.
The Vikings didn't disappear. They evolved.
And maybe that's the real lesson. Not how the Viking Age ended, but what it teaches us about change, survival, and letting go. The Viking Age may be over, but courage, resilience, the will to face a brutal world head-on,
That never vanished. It just found new forms. And if there's one thing the Vikings would understand, it's this. Nothing lasts forever. But what you stand for can echo long after you're gone.
If this story made you see history, and maybe even your own life, differently, hit subscribe. And tell me in the comments, do you think the Vikings declined, or did they simply transform? Because sometimes, the end of an era isn't a failure. It's a beginning in disguise.